A gemstone that costs $10,000 can shatter from a single tap against a kitchen counter. A different stone, costing a fraction of that, can survive being worn every single day for 50 years and still look flawless. The difference between them has almost nothing to do with price, rarity, or how hard the salesperson worked to convince you. The jewelry industry has trained you to ask the wrong questions. They want you asking how rare a stone is, how big it is, how much it sparkles under the showroom lights. They do not want you asking the one question that actually matters. When you are about to wear something on your hand for the rest of your life, will it survive? Today, we are doing this differently. Instead of ranking gemstones by price, we are splitting them into two lists. The stones you should think very carefully about before buying, and the stones that jewelers quietly trust above almost everything else. Some of these will genuinely surprise you. One of the most famous gemstones on Earth lands on the wrong list, and the single smartest stone you can buy is one most people have never even heard of. But before any of that, you need to understand one idea the industry hopes you never learn. Because once you understand it, you will never look at a jewelry case the same way again. Hardness and toughness are not the same thing. Hardness is scratch resistance. It is measured on something called the Mohs scale, from 1 to 10. A high number means the surface resists scuffs and scratches. Toughness is something completely different. Toughness is resistance to breaking, chipping, and cracking. And here is the part that catches people. A stone can be extremely hard and still shatter like glass. There is even a third trap called cleavage, natural planes inside a crystal where it prefers to split, like the grain running through a piece of wood. Chop with the grain, and the whole thing splits clean. Hold those three ideas in your head. Hardness, toughness, cleavage. They are about to explain why some of the most expensive stones in the world are terrible choices for a ring, and why that $10,000 stone I mentioned at the start could shatter against a kitchen counter, while a much cheaper one survives a lifetime. The price tag told that buyer nothing about toughness. Nobody had ever explained the difference. By the end of this video, you will never make that mistake. Let us start with the stones to think twice about. First, pearls. Pearls are not a mineral at all. They are made of calcium carbonate, layered inside a living mollusk, and they are astonishingly soft. On the Mohs scale, a pearl sits between 2.5 and 4.5. To put that in perspective, almost every gold alloy is harder than a pearl. The metal of the setting can scratch the gem it is holding. It gets worse. Calcium carbonate dissolves in acid, mild acid, the kind in vinegar, in perfume, in hairspray, and in human sweat if your skin runs acidic. Cleopatra famously dissolved a pearl in a glass of wine vinegar and drank it to win a bet. Mechanically speaking, that story checks out completely. This does not mean never own pearls. It means do not put them in a ring you wear every day. Pearls belong in earrings, in necklaces, in pieces that live away from impact and friction. As a daily wear ring stone, they are one of the worst choices on Earth. Second, opals. Opals break my heart because they are some of the most beautiful stones in existence, and they want nothing more than to fall apart. An opal sits around 5.5 to 6.5 on the Mohs scale, so it scratches easily. But the real problem is chemistry. Opals contain water. Sometimes up to 20% of the stone is literally water-trapped inside the silica structure. If an opal dries out, or if it experiences a rapid temperature change, for example washing dishes in hot water, then stepping into cold air, it can physically crack from the inside out. The phenomenon is called crazing, and it looks like a spider web of tiny fractures spreading through the gem. Once it starts, there is no reversing it. This is exactly why you almost always see opals in protective bezel settings. Jewelers are not doing that for the looks. They are doing it because an exposed opal edge is begging to chip. Gorgeous stone. Genuinely high maintenance. Around 97% of the world's opal comes from Australia, and the finest black opals from Lightning Ridge are among the more stable varieties, but even those demand respect. Think very hard before putting one in a ring you wear every day, and if you do, insist on a protective setting. Third, tanzanite. Tanzanite has one of the best marketing stories in the entire gem world, and one of the weakest cases for actually buying it. Yes, it is geographically rare. It comes from a single small mining zone in Tanzania near Mount Kilimanjaro and nowhere else on the planet. Dealers love to call it a one-generation gemstone. But here is what the marketing leaves out. Tanzanite sits at only about 6 to 6.5 on the Mohs scale, so everyday dust slowly scratches and dulls it. It has perfect cleavage, which means a sharp knock in the wrong direction can split it. And that famous violet-blue color? It is almost never natural. Nearly 100% of tanzanite on the market is heat-treated because the raw stone usually comes out of the ground a dull brownish color. Heat transforms it into the blue you see in the case. A gemologist once described tanzanite as looking like sapphire wishes it could look. The honest move is to skip the hype and buy the sapphire. We will get to exactly why in the second half of this video. Fourth, emeralds. This one fools even experienced buyers because emerald looks great on paper. It sits around 7.5 to 8 on the Mohs scale, which sounds durable. But remember, hardness is not toughness. Emerald has a property that is a jeweler's nightmare. It is brittle, and it is almost always full of internal fractures. Emeralds naturally contain inclusions the French poetically call jardin, meaning garden. Think of a windshield that arrives already cracked, under constant internal tension. That is why the emerald cut exists, that rectangular shape with the corners trimmed off. It was not invented for style. It was invented because a sharp corner on an emerald is a stress point that can break the entire stone during setting. On top of that, at least 90% of emeralds on the market are oiled or resin-filled to hide those fractures. Drop one in an ultrasonic cleaner or scrub it too hard, and you can strip the treatment right out, and sometimes crack the stone in the process. Beautiful color, genuinely fragile. Handle with enormous care, and never assume it is as tough as the price suggests. If this breakdown is changing how you look at gemstones, hit the like button and subscribe. Gemstones. Because now we cross over to the other side. Other side. The stones the wrong list warned you about have a reason to exist, and the next group is what jewelers actually reach for when they want beauty that survives real life. Jewelers. These are the stones worth buying. Worth buying. First, garnet. Most people think garnet is a cheap, dark red stone from a discount catalog. Most people are wrong. Garnet is not a single gem. It is an entire family of minerals, which is why it shows up in so many colors. Most garnets sit around 7 to 7.5 on the Mohs scale. They have no cleavage, and they are genuinely tough, and some varieties are spectacular. Tsavorite is a vivid emerald green garnet that is cleaner and tougher than emerald itself, with none of the fragility. Rhodolite garnet glows a beautiful raspberry color. There is even a rare green garnet called demantoid that throws more fire than a diamond. For everyday durability, color, and price, garnet quietly outperforms stones that cost many times more. It is one of the most underrated values in the entire gem world, and it sits in jewelry cases right now, being overlooked by people reaching for stones half as tough at twice the price. Second, topaz. Topaz is a stone with one strength and one warning. The strength. It sits around 8 on the Mohs scale, harder than quartz and garnet. The blue varieties you see everywhere, Swiss blue and London blue, are an electric, saturated blue that aquamarine almost never reaches. And because topaz is abundant, those colors are remarkably affordable. The warning: topaz has perfect cleavage. A sharp impact in exactly the wrong direction can split it cleanly. So topaz is a fantastic value for earrings, pendants, and rings that will not take heavy abuse, but it is not the stone for someone who is rough on their hands. Buy it for the color and the price. Just respect the cleavage. Third, moissanite. Moissanite has one of the strangest origin stories of any gem. In 1893, a chemist named Henri Moissan found tiny crystals in a meteorite crater in Arizona and initially thought they were diamonds. They turned out to be silicon carbide, a material that almost never forms naturally on Earth. Nearly all moissanite in jewelry today is lab-grown. And from a durability standpoint, it is remarkable. Moissanite sits at about 9.25 on the Mohs scale, making it the hardest gem available except for diamond. It is extremely tough, holds its polish for decades, and throws off even more rainbow fire than a diamond. It can even be grown in different shades, blues, greens, and champagne tones. The only thing to know going in is that moissanite disperses light more dramatically than diamond, so it produces bigger flashes of colored fire. Some people adore that look. Some find it slightly too much. Either way, you are getting a stone that is almost as hard as diamond, dramatically tougher than most colored stones, and a fraction of the cost. If you love the look of a bright, fiery white stone, and you do not want to spend a fortune, moissanite is one of the smartest buys on the market. Fourth, lab-grown diamond. Let us be clear about what this is, because the confusion is deliberate. A lab-grown diamond is not a fake. It is not a simulant like cubic zirconia. It is an actual diamond, the same crystal structure, the same Mohs 10 hardness, the same optical properties as a mined diamond. The only difference is that it grew in a controlled chamber instead of underground. Mechanically, it is identical. It holds a razor-sharp polish forever, and the price drops dramatically. A stone that costs tens of thousands of dollars as a mined diamond can often be bought for a fraction of that in lab-grown form, sometimes less than a fifth of the price. There is no scratch test, no sparkle test, no durability test that can tell them apart, because there is nothing to tell apart. They are the same material. For value, this is one of the best decisions a buyer can make. And that brings us to the stone the wrong list warned you about. The mined natural diamond. Mechanically, it is the hardest natural material on Earth, but it is also extraordinarily overpriced for what you actually get. The result of more than a century of marketing that turned one stone into the default engagement choice. And here is the detail almost nobody mentions. Diamond has perfect cleavage too. Under the right impact, even a diamond can split clean along its crystal plane. It happens more often than you would think. A natural diamond is a fine stone. It is just very rarely worth what you are charged for it, when an identical lab-grown version sits right beside it for a fraction of the price. Fifth, Spinel. This might be the most underrated gemstone on Earth, and the story behind it proves the point perfectly. Spinel sits at about 8 on the Mohs scale. It has no cleavage, and it is exceptionally tough, which means it handles daily wear better than almost anything in its price range. Here is the incredible part. For over 1,000 years, people could not tell Spinel apart from ruby. Some of the most famous rubies in royal history turned out to be Spinels once modern science finally examined them. The Black Prince's ruby, the enormous red stone set in the British imperial state crown, is not a ruby at all. It is a red Spinel. So is Catherine the Great's ruby. Kings and queens wore spinel for centuries, believing it was something else entirely. Spinel comes in vivid red, hot pink, cobalt blue, lavender, even black. It is durable, it is beautiful, it requires no heat treatment, and it costs a fraction of ruby or sapphire. Fine red and pink spinel is actually rarer than ruby, yet it sells for far less, simply because the marketing machine never got behind it the way it got behind diamonds. That gap between rarity and price is exactly where smart buyers live. High-end designers like Cartier and independent master jewelers have quietly embraced spinel for years. If you want the single smartest stone almost nobody is talking about, this is it. And finally, the best of them all. Corundum, the mineral behind both sapphire and ruby. Corundum is as close to a perfect jewelry material as nature has produced. It sits at 9 on the Mohs scale, second only to diamond. It is extremely tough, it has no cleavage, and it holds a crisp polish essentially forever. Ruby is simply red corundum. Every other color, blue, pink, yellow, purple, green, even the rare orange, is sapphire. Same indestructible mineral, almost every color you could want. And unlike so many stones on the first list, corundum has no hidden trap, no water inside waiting to crack it, no fractures running through it by default, no treatment that washes out if you clean it wrong. It simply works, day after day, decade after decade. This is why jewelers quietly trust sapphire and ruby above nearly everything else, and why they are the stones I would point my own family toward for a ring meant to last a lifetime. So here is the simple test that ties this entire video together. Before you buy any gemstone for jewelry you actually plan to wear, ask one question. Not how rare is it? Not how much does it sparkle? Ask, will it survive my life? Will it survive being worn, knocked, washed, and lived in for years? Pearls, opals, emeralds, and tanzanite can be absolutely stunning, and to be clear, this is not a ban list. None of these stones are off limits. They simply demand more respect. Worn as earrings, pendants, or brooches, where they never take a direct hit, they can last for generations. And even in a ring, the right protective setting changes everything. A bezel setting, where a rim of metal wraps completely around the stone and shields its edges, can turn a fragile gem into something far more wearable. An opal, an emerald, a piece of tanzanite set low and protected in a bezel rather than raised on exposed prongs, has a real fighting chance at daily life. The mistake is not owning these stones. The mistake is wearing them carelessly, in exposed settings, and expecting them to behave like a sapphire. Garnet, topaz, moissanite, lab-grown diamond, spinel, and above all sapphire and ruby, ask for none of that caution. They will take everything daily life throws at them and keep going, in almost any setting you choose. And when you are ready to buy, from either list, take that knowledge to a local independent jeweler who will tell you the truth about the stone in front of you, recommend the right setting for how you actually live, set it properly, and stand behind it for the life of the piece. That relationship is worth more than any brand name on any box. If this video taught you something the showroom never would, hit the like button and subscribe to Jewel Verdict for more honest jewelry breakdowns. And if you want to support the channel directly, hit the join button below to become a member. Drop a comment and tell me which stone surprised you the most. And if you have a gemstone you swear by, share it. The best discoveries on this channel come straight from the comments. Now you know what actually survives on your hand. I will see you in the next one.